Good morning, honorable members. I would like us to commence with the meeting and take this opportunity to welcome all the honorable members who are here in attendance.
Recording
and
in progress.
Also in welcome the officials of Parliament. Welcome our invitees, starting with the Department of Public Enterprises, and as well as the members of the board that will be briefing us here, which is the Film and Publications Board. You are all welcome, members. The meeting is duly opened. Amanda, can you help us with the apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. I received 3 apologies, one from Honorable Nana, as well as the Minister and the Deputy Minister. Thank you very much, Chair.
Honorable members, those are the apologies that we have. Is there any apology that might have been registered to any of the honorable members? None. Okay. I know that we might have a difficulty that we don't have both the minister and the deputy minister in this meeting. But knowingly that we are in this period that we are in, and the fact that today is the cabinet day, and we are left almost with 2 months before the end of this administration. And therefore, it is important that I appeal to the members that we may proceed with this and get this briefing from the Films and Publication Board because it will help us to conclude our work in any way. Indeed, the Deputy Minister did send me as well a message that in the last 2 previous meetings we had, he was with us, but because he had skipped 2 cabinet committee meetings and it would not be permissible for him to miss the 3rd one because it may affect his performance contract. So I will appeal that we allow this so that we don't have an unnecessary discussion. The ministry had complied very well when we had made an impassioned plea to them that they must always make sure that they are here. So I believe that we have officials that are from that department, and I know that we do require the minister or a deputy, but because we're in this period, we wouldn't have another opportunity now to get this briefing if we can postpone it just because the minister and the deputy is not here. So in that respect, and with your indulgence, honorable members, I will now wish to invite the chairperson of the Films and Publication Board, together with the management, to take to the podium to introduce the team and then take us through the presentation. And then we will take questions after that and comments which are related to this presentation, and perhaps also on how we want to address some of the issues that we may have between ourselves and the department. Chairperson?
Good morning. I see I was seeing the DG coming on, and I was asking myself if she wishes to come through before me, but
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
not.
I'm happy that the DG is here, especially with the remark that I made in reference to the fact that the department. So I think it goes without saying that the DG must preface this presentation on behalf of the department. So you will bear with me, Chairperson, for having invited you. I didn't realize that the DG is here, so it's not your mistake. It is a mistake that I'm prepared to take because I didn't identify the DG on the platform. DG, please welcome if you can take us through, and then you may as well as introduce the board chair from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and a very good morning to all the honorable members on the platform. Greetings to the chairperson, members of the FPB board, as well as management, as well as my colleagues from the department. And I think we also are supported by also the public. Chair, I'm glad that you have accepted the apology from our minister and the deputy minister, whom are attending the cabinet committee this morning. With your permission, I'd like to just switch off my camera to preserve the bandwidth. But then safe to say, Chair, that we've appeared today with the FPB, led by the chairperson, Ms. Mzama Mkosi, to update the select committee on the challenges as well as measures taken by the FPB to address harmful content, particularly concerning children, women, and people, vulnerable groups. And I think, honorable members, you'd know that in this digital era that we're in, fake news, misinformation can be one of the leading sources of dangers to personal security. And South Africa is not absorbed from that. So the FPB, honorable members, plays a critical role that helps society at large to understand the nuances of fake news that can help us recognize it as well as mitigate their harmful impact. Today's presentation, Honorable Chair, will then cover the legislative mandate as well as the legislative prohibitions, as well as enforcement mechanisms, flagship projects that we are running. I'm happy to say that we are a critical partner also to other state entities, especially working with our security cluster, which is led by the South African Police Services. And we're also going to highlight some of the actions and measures that we have taken. I'm glad that we have this public platform to be able to talk about those, because I don't think that we are certainly spreading the word far enough. But I'm happy to indicate that there have been some significant actions and measures that have been put in place to protect the most vulnerable in our society. We'll also touch on the collaborations as well as partnerships and identify some of the risk and the challenges. As I indicated, the FPB's role is certainly to ensure that the vulnerable groups in society, especially children, we've seen, I mean, they're quite active at the beginning of the year to ensure the educational content is disseminated to schools, to then ensure that as children navigate online and use, obviously, the digital devices, they are also then well aware in as far as then the vulnerabilities that go with that. They'll also assist with their old age, especially those other grant recipients and other elderly members who are obviously susceptible to cybercrime and exploitation. Honorable members, you would know, I mean, there are all sorts of schemes online where people are promised groceries, etc., and information. And the FPB has been then the vanguard to ensure that that information in terms of the fake news is also then curbed, working, as I said, with government institutions. So I'm happy that we have been given this opportunity this morning. The chair will then give the opening remarks and then obviously then take, with the leadership of FPB, take you through the presentation. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I'd like to hand over to the chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG. With your, thank you, Chairperson of the committee. With your permission, may I also then switch off my camera and just to also manage the bandwidth and make sure that there is consistency. We are very much honored at the opportunity to indeed present the work of the Film and Publications Board to the Select Committee. And we thank the committee for the invitation to do that. The DG indeed is correct to say that there is not enough public platforms and opportunities for us to showcase the work, but also to open it up for input and interrogation where necessary. With me this morning is the management team that is led by by myself, the chairperson of the board, and the CEO, Dr. Mashilo Boluga. We also have the executives that are also on the call, and I apologize for the noise in the background. I hope it is not distracting. We have Mr. Ephraim Klago, who's Executive of Technology and Platform Monitoring, Advocate Makosazana Lindhorst, who is the Executive for Regulatory Development and Enforcement. We have Advocate Msengi Maluleka, who is the Manager for Public Complaints, as well as Mr. Tapelo Mokwana, who is the Manager of Strategic Partnerships in the Office of the CEO. And last but not least, we have Ms. Beverly Nkumanda, who is the Executive of Corporate Services. This is the team that will be reinforcing the presentation that will be led by the CEO. But before I call the CEO, I think I would just like to make a few opening comments. I think the DG alluded to it in terms of the partnership that we have with law enforcement agencies. The presentation will go into detail around how we do that and the successes that have been achieved as a result of that. But also, in addition to the successes, we have not been without challenges, and I appreciate that the main agenda for today is also to highlight those challenges. And key to those challenges have been brought about by our, well, on the one hand, the blessing of the extended mandate for the entity, which ensured that we now were given legislative teeth in order to be the regulatory, to enforce and monitor the content online, which was very much welcome, and it's something that the entity has been working on for years. However, the fact that that extended mandate remains unfunded means that the work of the entity was almost quadrupled, but the resources have not only remained the same, but in fact, they have been cut, as you all know, with the austerity measures upon the fiscus. But the CEO will go into detail around how we try and notwithstanding those limitations, we still try to make sure that our mandate is not affected. And And one of, the key partners that we also have partnered with, in the season that we're in, the year of elections, we feel that our role is also going to be heightened. The CEO will go into detail around how we are going to be playing a partnership role to the IEC on the issue of misinformation. And I think the focus of the agency, which is the core of its mandate, to make sure that it is there to protect the vulnerable groups, and the vulnerable groups being particularly women and children. And I'm very proud to be part of this entity in the work that we have been doing to make sure that we leave no stone unturned when there has been obvious breaches of what we feel is human rights online, particularly to women. We know that it happens quite often when women's rights are violated online and videos go viral, violating their human rights to privacy. And the organization has been, quite proactive in really providing the support for those victims, tracing those that have been victimized and making sure that they get not only psychosocial help, but also to make sure that they are advised of their legal rights in terms of what can be done. As you may know, there's many videos that often go viral, and we have done a lot towards that. I think that may also be part of the CEO's report that goes into detail. But not only that, we make sure that we do not leave the platforms unchallenged in terms of the part that they played in instances like that. So we've been quite proactive in making sure that we instruct the taking down of certain content that is put up in violation of particularly women in the most recent past. But the CEO can go into detail about that. I thought I'll just make those few comments before I hand over to the CEO, Dr. Mashilo Buluga, to take us through the full presentation, and then we will obviously be here together with the executives to take any other comments coming out of that. I thank you. Over to you, CEO, with your permission, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, DG, honorable members of Parliament, as well as my colleagues in Parliament. From the department and the FPB. As the Chairperson introduced me, my name is Mashilo Buluga. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Film and Publication Board. You'll see in my background, I'm under a tree because we are in Phalaborwa, working with the IEC around youth participation. For us, the reason why we partner the IEC, I'll talk about that, is simply because of the role that we play as an online content regulator, and understanding that the national and provincial elections of 2024 will be fought online. So as we engage the youth on their participation, I think the issue of misinformation and disinformation as harmful and prohibited content becomes key. So we have partnered the IEC. So throughout the week, starting from Monday, we've been in this part of the world to raise awareness with tertiary institutions. So my apologies if sometimes my visuals don't come right, or the voices don't come right, or network disruptions. But now that I have showed my video so that I can connect the name to the face, allow me, Chairperson, to shut down to close my video so that I can focus on the presentation. Chairperson, if we go to the next slide, Taps. Chairperson, the Film and Publication Act of 2019, which amended the 1996 Act, really transformed the FPB from what it has always been as the content regulator. You'll recall that the FPB is one of the oldest entities in South Africa, from 1963, where it has always been known as the the censorship board. It has always been in the responsibility of banning movies or anything that at that time was considered to be harmful by the then government. And then post 1996, the organization was transformed, and as a result, to be aligned to the new principles of the democratic environment. That's where we are today, and we want to brief the as requested by this committee, as to where we are regarding the protection of the vulnerable groups against what you call, as defined in the Act, the harmful and prohibited content. And I think one of the things that we should appreciate as the FPB is the fact that through this Act, which came into operation in 2022, through a presidential proclamation, South Africa became one of the leading countries around online safety. For those members who follow the international development, you'll recall that UK only started with online safety last year. Their Act of Parliament was passed last year in September. And then 2 weeks ago, actually last Monday, Canada passed its own. So we are amongst the best. US doesn't have even a federal law on that. So we are amongst the leading countries insofar as online safety is concerned. I think we'll take the committee through that. But just to say, and we want to thank the opportunity, as the chairperson and the DG said, on addressing this committee, because I think through this we realize that you'll be able to plead our cause, not only to plead our cause in Parliament as this important entity, but also be the ambassadors, because the work that the FPB does is beyond just the 8 to 4 p.m. work. All of us, we are first and foremost parents, and one of the things that we want to see, and we are parents, we are brothers, we are sisters, we want to see any members of our families, whether it's children, sisters, being safe online. And that's, I think, the task that we have as the Film and Publication Board. So the Act defines which are the two terms that we are using in terms of the Act. One is that which is called harmful act, or harmful content, which is defined in the Act as that which causes emotional harm. In other words, this is the kind of content that causes psychosocial harm, to whether it's through films, games, and so forth. In other words, that's the content that once a person is exposed to that, it causes that kind of harm. And the second area is that which is called prohibited content, which means the content that relates to propaganda for war, incitement for imminent violence, advocacy of hatred on identifiable groups, and so forth. So this one is that which the FPB is empowered to classify when time permits, or depending on the circumstances. In other words, that which can be prohibited. FPB has got the power to say this is prohibited. You will notice that our presentation carries the colors of the IEC. This is because of the partnership that we have with the IEC in preparation for the next election. And one of the content that you have classified as prohibited is that which you call misinformation, disinformation, or fake news in simple terms. Because if you look at that, it complies, or it passes the test of being can cause, I think if you remember the lessons that you have learned from Kenya and Nigeria and even the US, through if the results are not properly handled, not out of the inefficiency of the electoral institution, but simply because there's acts of disinformation, results become contested, and ultimately they can cause war, hate, and even sow division within the country. We don't want that to happen. That's why we have partnered the IEC, and hence we use these two colors. I thought I should also provide that. So that's what the FPB we are doing. So throughout, we talk about harmful and we talk about prohibited content. Now, the question is, what is that the Act prohibits? The Film and Publication Act, as amended in 2019 and operationalized on March 2022, the possession of film, games, publication without registering with or being classified by the FPB. In simple terms, your TikTok, most of the social media platforms that operate in South Africa, for them to operate, they must be registered with the FPB and be issued with a certificate to operate in South Africa. Secondly, anyone who carries possession or produces content that relates to children pornography, that one is not allowed in terms of the Act, is prohibited. So even now, I think one of the things that we are working with with the department is the terminology. I think I will explain that later, because the terminology that we have is the 2019 terminology. That's why we've got things like child pornography. A child cannot be involved in pornography because the way pornography seems to suggest that certain level of consent, and a child cannot be consenting to issues like that. So we are working with the department on new terminologies that must be included in the Act. And then the other one, I think, which the chairperson touched on to a great deal, is around the distribution of private sexual photographs and films without prior consent of the individuals. And we call it non-consensual sharing of intimate images. I think this happened a lot, and 95% of it affects women. I think as we talk to vulnerable groups, including women. In other words, what happens is people get involved in a relationship, and I think in South Africa, we've seen a lot of cases. And then when the relationship goes sour, somebody decides to post their pictures without their consent, their nudity online. And then I think we'll explain how we deal with that. So that is not allowed in terms of the Act. And then also sexual violence against children is prohibited across the board. I think the good thing about the Act is that when coming to content that depict children, the FPB doesn't even have to go and investigate. The Act is very clear. We will take down the content, and then other process will follow later. Whether it's nudity, whatever, other process will follow later. But we can take down the content with immediate effect. And then the other one is the one that I talked about around the content that propagates war, incitement of violence. I think South Africa, the events of July 2021 are still fresh in our memories, to say a lot of that event was kind of fueled by that which was happening on social media. And that's why I think the FPB had to tighten its teeth to make sure that these things are done. Next slide, please. So the other part is we've got, in terms of the enforcement mechanisms, you've got the enforcement committee, which wasn't there before. In other words, FPB, when we see acts of non-compliance with the Act, we do the investigation, we take the matters forward to the enforcement committee, which is chaired by a retired judge. The current retired judge is Judge Masipa, who's well known for Pistorius case. She's the one that's chairing that. She's assisted by other members. We also got appeals tribunal. In other words, if a member of the public is not happy with that which they see, and they're not happy with the decision that the FPB has taken, whether it's on the rating that we offer to movies, we'll explain that. They can petition the enforcement committee in the appeals tribunal. And our flagship projects, as you can see, children protection and the hotline. In other words, FPB is the only entity on the continent that has a hotline dedicated for the reporting of what we call child abusive sexual abuse material. We are the only one, and through this we are a member of an internet of hotlines throughout the world, 54 members that are part of that. So this is because the issue of online abuses is not confined to one jurisdiction or national boundaries. So we work with hotlines all over the world, where in which if a content is coming from South Africa, they will present or report that content to us, then we'll remove it or we'll investigate that together with the SAPS. Same thing applies if we see content that is distributed in South Africa but coming from another country, then we are able to have that direct relationship or direct contact with that hotline, so that can be the matter can be handled with, can be dealt with. Children protection, as we'll explain later, is one of the biggest projects, because that's what we exist to do. And then online gender-based abuse and victim support. So this is around the identification of women as vulnerable groups. And I think our contribution here is South Africa's as priority around gender-based violence. Hence, we got this way in which I think we'll explain this, the victim support. In other words, if the nude pictures of a member of the public is displayed without their consent, what we do as the FPB, we provide psychosocial support. We don't do it ourselves, but we refer it to the relevant entities that we work with. The biggest challenge in this area is for many women who are victims of this kind of violence. They don't want to report the matter. In that way, then we can provide legal support, because you can only provide legal support once they've reported. But we understand it's the same as rape. Their understanding is that once they report the matter, it means they have to relive the same ordeal through the trial process. But what we do is, first of all, we support them through psychosocial mechanism, and we also try, first of all, to do the take them, but we explain that as we go along. And then the other one, like we said, the partnership with the IEC, as I've explained earlier, and then the youth online safety. We have established a national online safety council, which ensures that the youth of South Africa are engaged. As you are aware, sometimes these youth are more clued up on what is happening on the technology. They were born during the technology, so they understand. So, and even in terms of the debates or the discussions that they want to have, sometimes they may not freely have the same discussions with us. So this is a peer-to-peer kind of mechanism where in which the youth can engage among themselves and make some recommendation as to how we need to intervene as the FPB. Now, our actions cover the following: children protection and the support for the law enforcement agencies. Now, if you go to other countries, and I think that's where South Africa's model is different. If you go to other countries, the hotlines that we work with, once they receive a material around violation of children's rights online, what they do is they report the matter to the police. The police will investigate and follow the process. But with us as the FPB, we do a lot of analysis. In other words, for those members who have been following the case of Ackerman, what happened is the police will gather the evidence, bring all the materials to us, whether laptops, whether cell phones, whatever gadget that the culprit or the perpetrator might have been using. The FPB we analyze. So for every case, you find that there are 2,000 or more of material or visuals that we have to analyze. And then we provide that evidence in court on behalf of whether the National Director of Public Prosecution, NPA, or the SAPS. And most of them, you find that the FPB's evidence is crucial because we are the one that provide that expert advice. And then we also do regulatory development and enforcement. On regulatory development, prior, the FPB wasn't a regulator. Therefore, we didn't have regulatory instruments. So we have, in the last 2 years, put together a canon of regulatory instruments that we use and guidelines, including video sharing, that ensures that they're aligned to the Constitution. In other words, there are certain instances where you cannot act because you have to give members of the public an opportunity to raise their opinion and freedom of expression. I think that's one of the things that we try to comply with as we develop these regulations. And then we do enforcement. Enforcement, either with the SAPS, one of the big projects that we run with the SAPS, other than the analysis, is what you call the raids, where in which we conduct raids with the SAPS on illegal distributed DVDs. Now, this one is not for the enforcement of the copyright, even though that function that lies with the DTI benefits from that. For us, is because for many of the members of Parliament, when you go through the city centers, you see a lot of videos that are being sold on the streets. A lot of them, you find that is a lot of child pornographic material that are not supposed to be on the street, because you may find that it's entitled a normal video for a child to play, but when the child gets home, it's purely pornographic material. And some of them, these materials are not or haven't been classified by the FPB. So that's why we have to remove them from the streets. I think we do that in many of the cities with the police, and I think there have been a lot of successful cases in this regard. The biggest challenge is that is only in the tip of an iceberg, because it's a fledgling, it's a growing industry. So ours is to touch on the foundation of it. In other words, what is the origin of this industry? Because these days, one of the materials that we pick up, a technology that we pick up, a gadget in Cape Town, could within 3 minutes produce over 24 series of videos in just one minute. So you can imagine the impact of this. So when they are distributed on the street, the impact that they have. We also do a lot of public education. That's why I've explained that we are now in Palabra to raise awareness around the issues of harmful and prohibited content. We conduct training even for members of the SAPS. Sometimes we don't do it our own. We try and, like on enforcement, sometimes we invite our international partners to conduct that training and raise awareness. We still continue to do classification and moderation. This one is very critical. And I always, when we as the FPB, we address to members of the public, we say, if all of us watch television or we watch movies, games, whether from Netflix, whether Showmax, if you don't see the FPB logo on the top left of that which you are watching, please let us know, because it means that material is not supposed to be there, because it means it has been classified for age appropriateness. Sometimes you watch a movie, then you realize that this movie probably, the way that it has got maybe a lot of pornographic scenes, whatever, in terms of the act, you can appeal to the FPB. You can lay a complaint with us to kind of reclassify that movie. I think if you are not happy, you can either go to the enforcement committee or the appeals tribunal for that movie to be reclassified. It's a public right that is in the act, and we can do that. And I think I also want to appeal to the members of parliament to be our eyes and ears on this. When you see a movie that our children are watching and doesn't have the FPB logo, touch base with us so that we can look into it, because some of them are not there. So on children protection, we cover the following, like I've mentioned, classification so that we can give the movie appropriate age ratings, the hotline operations, as I've mentioned. So that those acronyms that we've used there is child sexual abusive material and child sexually exposure material. These are the ones that are being used currently to replace what in our act is called child pornography, which is an outdated term. And then I've mentioned that we support the law enforcement agents, particularly the SAPS, NPA, and even Interpol. We work with them through the hotline as well. And then the rates I've mentioned as well, because we remove material that are classified or that are pornography that are on the street. So a lot of them, I think the platform owners have been assisting us a lot when dealing with matters like this, particularly around takedowns, where when we see harmful content, the act requires that we either do the takedown ourselves or we request the platform owners to take down. I think a lot of them, I want to say that they are supporting us. It's just that you got others that are very difficult to deal with. Some of them are not headquartered in South Africa. Those that are in South Africa, the work becomes easier. So since April 22, when the act came into operation, these are some of the cases that we have handled. For each cases, there's a lot of materials, like I've mentioned, that have to be analyzed, that have been referred to the South African police for content analysis in child pornography, with thousands of materials. Some of the cases that we have referred to relate to the Ackerman case, where he got 3 life sentences, I think, thanks to the FPB and the SAPS. And you heard last year, the SAPS has arrested over 27 culprits around online children protection. So we'll be working with the police to make sure that they achieve successful prosecution. So there are other cases that are ongoing currently that we are still being finalized, and we are confident that through the work that we do, those people will be taken off the streets. Next slide. And then on public and training, these are the numbers as to what do we do around the public education training and awareness. You can see what we do with the distributors, what we do with the parents. It's a huge task, a task that we have to face as the FPB. There are only about 100 of us in other entities, and I think that's where we want to make your appeal is when the Online Safety Act of the UK was operationalized last year, they have been it was given to Ofcom, Office of Communication, which is the regulator in the UK. They have to date appointed over 350 people just on the act, not on the other things that they've been doing. And it has always been a huge regulator. So with us, there are only 100 of us. The reason why we can't employ more is because you need different kind of skill set, whether it's the enforcement, whether it's the online content moderating, quite a lot. But the reason why we can't do that is because of, like the chairperson said, this expanded mandate that has increased 3-fold, but there has been any additional resource that has been brought to us. But we've been working with the department and the National Treasury in terms of what interim measures can we put in place. Notwithstanding, I think that situation is going to be compounded by the 15% budget cut that we have experienced for the next medium term. Next slide, please. So that tells you what is the work that you've been doing per quarter, looking at only this financial year. We've got three regional offices: Limpopo, Western Cape, and KZN. So this for the last quarter 3, that ended on the 31st of December, the work that we have done in terms of the numbers. Next slide. So this around the content moderation and classification, which we do. It requires a lot of technology, but because of the nature of the work, use generative artificial intelligence, but because of the challenge and the nuances around issues of culture, you need a human element to also verify the decision that the machine will give you. And then we also do a lot of monitoring. We've got the electronic monitoring team that is headed by Mr. Kako, which I think on daily basis monitor the distribution of content that is not in line with the Act. And then sometimes we work, like I've mentioned, we work with the platforms around the need for takedowns. And I think we have been successful in certain areas. Elon Musk's former Twitter is always a culprit in this regard. I think he's the biggest, not only in South Africa, whether you go to Australia, whether you go to any parts of the world, it's always a problem. Next slide, please. And then on the regulatory actions, these are the ones that we have finalized, on how people need to register, or the platform owners need to register, peer-to-peer video sharing guidelines to respect them. We don't want people to share content amongst themselves. What we don't want is to share content that is harmful and prohibited, whether it's misinformation or disinformation. We also finalized the regulations or the guidelines around public complaints and the handling procedures, the industry codes, which they have to comply with. Because in contrast to other sectors like broadcasting, you got the codes that have been there for a long period of time. But the social media platform is not a kind of an organized structure where you can say that they've got a code that they can deal with, then you endorse the codes in line with their own act. So we have to develop one, we finalize one, and then compliance notices and takedowns. So that's what the act requires, that on regular basis, we can request these entities to submit to us how are they dealing with harmful and prohibited content. Some of them, like we say, on quarterly basis, and some of them do give us good reports as to what they are doing. But like I mentioned, you always have got those culprits. This is the work that we are doing around online and other vulnerable groups. Like we said, our online gender-based program, we are always on it. I think one of the things that we'll be doing before the elections is to kind of capacitate women parliamentarians and politicians on misinformation, disinformation. It's a project that we are running with our international partners that are based in Germany. They've got a long history of doing that. It's more to say, how can we ensure that women that are in parliament or in political life are protected from misinformation, disinformation? And then this is the other one on NCII, like I've mentioned before. So on compliance and enforcement, these are the activities that you've done and the reports that you have done. You can see the number of compliance notices that we have issued and the number of investigations that we have done, including the rates. One day, I think members, if you want to pass by our Cape Town office, you will see the rooms and rooms full of DVDs that are illegally distributed, and we have confiscated them. The thing about us, we don't just confiscate and destroy. What we do is we investigate, so we raid them, we confiscate, and thereafter we analyze to understand what in each of the materials are. And then on collaboration, like I mentioned, this is not the act, this is not the work that we can do only looking at South Africa, because a lot of time, this is a transnational kind of an activity, so we need to collaborate. We collaborate nationally, we collaborate internationally. Nationally, we establish with other regulators, your Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA, National Consumer Commission, the domain names of South Africa, .ZNA, information regulator. We have created what we call Digital Regulators Forum, because the digital environment has blurred the boundaries between the various sectors. So we look at ways in which we can work together and collaborate. Internationally, we are part of InHope, like I mentioned, the 54-member internet hotlines headquartered in Amsterdam in Europe. We're also serving on the board of that entity. Unfortunately, we have been trying to push the continent to establish similar hotlines, because it can't be only South Africa that has got this, because children protection is not only South Africa's problem. And I think in line with our own foreign policy, the need to ensure that Africa also is taken on board. The children of Somalia are equally our children, and we should ensure that they are protected. That's why we've been working even on the continent through what you call the harmonization group on the continent, to make sure that if we can, together with In Hope, we can establish, I think we just launched one in Nigeria, the hotline, I think last month in February, and we hope similar ones will come, whether in Zimbabwe, Swaziland, and so forth. And we are also a member of the Global Online Safety Regulators Network. This is a network of online safety regulators of the world: UK, Australia, Ireland, and we also serve on the board of that, Fiji, and so forth. The idea is to develop collaborative strategies on enforcement and share opinions and even information on how we can regulate the sector, because whether you are in Australia, whether you are in Fiji, you still deal with the same social media platforms. One, whether it's TikTok, whether it's X, whether it's Google, they are all the same. And then our role in protecting the citizens ahead of and during the elections, I think that's the project that I've talked about, that will be educating the public together with IC. Will be handling the public complaints that will be coming out of the process, whether for takedown and so forth. And then we will be working with our partners around online monitoring as well, and do the investigation for cases to be prosecuted. Next slide. So it's a big project for us in the next 6 months, and we hope that we'll be able to do that. These are the challenges that we want to identify as requested. Key amongst others, like we said, is legislation. You recall that this act, for it to be passed by Parliament in 2019, the discussion had started in 2015. So the terminology now is outdated. You can see the terminology is outdated, which is quite key. We need to update the terminologies. And then one of the things that we have is in the Act, and that's what we have been trying to plead through the Portfolio Committee on Communication, that, you see, I think it's a lesson to us that at the moment, if a platform is found to be guilty of not complying with the Act, the amounts of penalties that we can impose are in the Act. For instance, they will say for distribution of content without consent or not having registered with the FPB. And we are talking a multi-billion, trillion-dollar business here. The amount that we can fine that person is around 50,000. So think about it, and it's very specific rands. Now we are dealing with a $1 trillion industry. What Elon Musk or X, for them, this means nothing, because they will even tell you that, no, we will pay you the fine, but it doesn't mean that we'll comply, because this doesn't mean anything. I think and it has got limitation. It creates a lot of limitations on enforcement capacity, because it prescribes what is that can happen. So I think for us in the future, regulators should be given that flexibility to look at the merit of the case and what kind of penalty can they impose. Inadequate funding, like the chairperson mentioned, the fact that our mandate has increased threefold without any additional budget is a big issue. But what is it that we are doing? We didn't sit back and say we don't have money. At least the Act gave us a leverage around regulation fees, which we are working on. In other words, the fees that industry can pay to us, and the Act also makes it specific that we can retain those fees, unlike other regulators that have to surrender those funds to National Treasury. So that's what we've been working on. We have the revenue strategy that we are implementing. We've got no doubt that in due course, we may no longer be a burden to the fiscus, due to understanding that the fiscus is really depressed with all the other social needs of the Republic or the population of South Africa. So, but currently, because of the limited challenges, we cannot do certain things. We cannot increase our capacity beyond what we have. And then the technology capability, because this is an online space, we need to be technologically robust. And unfortunately, due to this rippling effect of inadequate funding, that for you to regulate this sector that is so technological, we need technology, whether it's for classification and online monitoring. And as a result of the limited funding, we don't have that. And then in certain cases, then it means that we won't be able to act with speed that we need. And then the last one, obviously, this is the challenge that any regulator has, and I think it's not only in South Africa, but even the ones that we partnership with, privacy versus public protection. In other words, the law says everyone is entitled to privacy. For instance, end-to-end encryption that many of us will want to see happening on social media platforms because it's a constitutional right. But a lot of perpetrators of online violence hide around privacy and age assurance. I think one of the things that we are trying to work on is what you call age assurance. And people are saying you don't have the right to do that because everyone has got the right to do certain things as given by the Constitution. So for us, that's the mandate or the risk that we try to navigate quite carefully. That's why, for instance, in children protection, if we see any material that are harmful to children, then at least we can act through the police services. But on other areas like prohibited content, we can only act once there's a public complaint laid. The disadvantage of that, it means sometimes we may not be proactive in the way that we want to be proactive. Just to give you an example, misinformation and disinformation. We may see certain content. Ours, you can only flag it, preserve it for evidence with the police or when we want to prosecute the case. But unless there's a public complaint laid, the act is very specific. Only once a complaint has been laid, and that becomes a hindrance on us being a proactive regulator. But we do whatever that we can in this part. Next slide. So in essence, those are the biggest challenge that we face. Other ones that you have listed may be kind of the rippling effect or the effect of that which you have listed. Like in particular, the biggest one is funding and technology as well as the outdated legislation. But we are working with the department on, we've got a team that works on the new amendments to make sure that this act that we have, 2019 has been a long time, is tailor-made for the new environment so that we can work together. And I think as we have seen, Australia passed theirs and then are already in the process of amendment because the world that we work in is a rapidly evolving environment. Therefore, you can't, that which we have this year may not be applicable in 2015 or 2019. Chairperson, thank you very much. That's the end of our presentation. We hope we have covered all the areas that the members were interested in. We are open to questions together with the team, the chairperson and the colleagues from the department headed by the DG. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, chairperson of the committee. Back to you. Thank you. Thank you, CEO.
No, thank you very much, chairperson and CEO. Struggling, he asked me to continue with the meeting, and then immediately when he come back, I'll give him back. Without wasting any time, let me welcome the presentation and give to members, if they do have questions or clarity seeking, they can start by asking question. I'll see by raising of their hands. I can see Honorable BB, Momo. It looks like she is the only one. Yeah, maybe others, they are still thinking. Let me give her opportunity. Or Honorable Mama Ngwenya also. Yeah, Mama, start. You can start, Mama, BB.
Okay, Mama. Okay, Mama. Thank you very much, my chairperson, Mama. Good morning for your good self and also to the members and also to the DTG that we have and also the officials. I've got two questions, Chairperson, and I would like to appreciate the presentation, which was very, 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 very detailed, and also we applaud the entity of the work that they've done. It shows that, I mean, there's a progress that is happening. Well, my first question, Chairperson, will be, let's say besides the police, what would you consider as your stakeholders, particularly in this sphere of civil society? Have you partnered with any NGOs, especially around issues affecting vulnerable groups like women, as you mentioned, TC with your presentation, women, children, and people with disabilities? If maybe we do have some few NGOs that you have partnered with, I would like just to mention a few so that you can see that really the entity works with the ATNA partners. My last question, Chairperson, will be how many people, if any, in your knowledge, were arrested and or prosecuted in the last financial year due to failing to adhere to online content classification rules or regulations? Thank you very much, Chairperson Mama. I've got only those two questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Mama Bibi. Honorable Mama Ngwenya, Mama, continue. This platform is yours.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, for recognizing me. I have the following question to ask, and also I'd like to thank the department for the presentation. Comrade Chair, the Films and the Publication Board has last year raised concern about the white paper on audio and audio-visual media services and online content safety regarding aspect of the protection of the children and the and consumers. So, Chair, I wanted to check what were their major concern with the Department of Communication on this white paper, and have your concern been addressed and solved? If no, why not? Chair, many countries have laws that govern the protection of the children, women, and other consumers from harmful online content. I want to check, Chair, that do they have enough law in the country that protect the children and women from harmful online content? My third question, Chair, I want to check that does the Films of the Publication Board have awareness campaign and educational programs which are accessible to the poor of the poorest in all provinces? And if yes, how often do you conduct programs? And how is your response rate? Chair, my last question is on budget. I wanted to check if the Film and Publication Board have enough budget to carry out the programs that deal with the challenges of the harmful content to children, women, and other consumers. And if yes, how much budget was allocated to carry out this program during the current financial year? Ngiyabonga, Chairperson. I thank you, Kerlebo.
Thank you, Mama. Anyone who would like to ask question? Let me check. None. Okay. Let me give you back to you.
No, Chair.
Oh, okay. Honorable Chair. Chair is back.
Yeah, no, Chairperson, I just wanted to say that let me also join the members in welcoming this presentation. And this presentation is so important to us because we haven't had an interaction with the board in a while. But I understand that the department perhaps of communication has got many entities under its jurisdiction. So I just first want to ask from the board chairperson as to how do they interact directly with the provinces to ensure that issues that are specific and customized with the different provinces find an expression in their strategic plans as well as their annual plans. That's my first question. The second question would be, do you belong to any international organization which in itself is responsible for online content clarification? I'm thinking of a situation where you, chairperson, and the board classify something as harmful in South Africa, whereas in another country, it's perhaps considered not harmful. The second question, there are reports that are supposed to be directed to you, but they end up at the desk of the Broadcasting Complaints Commission. And the reason for that is because people don't necessarily know much about the processes and to draw a line between your role and perhaps that of the broadcaster. So maybe you could advise as to how could this be tackled so that the society out there is duly informed as to who should they approach on certain matters and who should they approach on other matters that are related specifically to you. So maybe my question should then conclude by saying, do you perhaps have any public awareness campaigns, and how often do you do so in that? And one of the ways of doing those awareness campaigns, chairperson, should perhaps employ the contemporary models of interacting with society, including traditional media as well as social media, where you can get access to a lot of young people. Those will be my question, chairperson. Yeah, please continue and process the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Chair. Let me give back to you, DG and Chairperson and CEO, to respond.
DG, may I go ahead before you?
Yes, Chair, please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, honorable members, for those questions and points of input. I will just address some of them high level and then hand over to the CEO, and he can duly delegate some of the executives that are on the call to provide perhaps some of the operational details. Just quickly on our side, on the issue of the concerns that we had with the white paper, I think just to say that it is work in progress in terms of engagements between us and the department, because I think one of the key issues was the issue of the merger or not of the entity, and which we have brought to the attention of the department, and they have been very good in terms of hearing us out, and we have made various presentations to them in that regard. And it has not yet been finalized, but I think we are working very closely with them as well as with the other entities that, like ICASA, that it was anticipated that there could be a possible merger. So although the matter is not yet finalized and they still remain certain pronouncements in that white paper which are of concern to us, but we're trusting that we will find each other with the department before that is finalized. On the issue of engagement with provinces, I think one of the key ways that we engage with provinces and which makes it easy for us to do that is the fact that we do have provincial offices, albeit we do not have provincial offices in all of the provinces. But in particular, those provinces where we do have a physical presence, that interaction with the province, as well as the law enforcement, as well as the other key stakeholders of that province, is made much easier. But in those provinces where we do not have a physical presence, the team has been very proactive, and it comes even from the direction given by the council, because the council itself, the way that I, as the chair, have allocated responsibilities at council level, because we've got council members that are representative, I think, of almost 7 of the provinces, and each of the council members have a responsibility to look after the engagement and the activities in the particular provinces, which then makes sure that we do not miss anything that is relating to the strategic implementation of the FPB mandate in those provinces. But even at an operational level, the management has been very, very proactive in making sure that they leave no one behind in the implementation of the mandate. The CEO can go into greater detail as to the provinces that we have reached and to what extent we have done that. But we are confident as the board, as the council, that we have gone into far areas, and we are not just going into the urban areas, but we go particularly to the underserviced areas to spread the message and fulfill the mandate of the entity. I think the CEO will also cover, I think, the role of international bodies. I think we've taken exactly because of that view. We want to make sure that we participate at an international level, because the mandate, like we have, has no borders, and so it is important for us to be part of those international organizations. CEO will touch onto that, as well as the number of arrests. I think I will leave it at that from my side, and just CEO and your executives, if you can just deal with the rest. I will come back if there's anything else that I need to deal with at a council level. CEO, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think you have made my work easier by responding to some of the questions. I think there are just few that I'll respond to. Advocate Lindhorst, who is in charge of our regulatory development enforcement, can talk on the number of cases that have been successfully prosecuted. I think there's a slide where we talked about some of them to date in the last 3-5 years, including the Ackerman case, which I think is one of the biggest success stories that we can mention. But just to deal with the partnership, Honorable Bibi, the way that we work with the NGOs is through social development, whether on children, whether on women. We try to work with social development and women, youth, and people with disabilities in the presidency. So most of the time when we do public awareness, we engage them, and then they come to our meetings. Even our online gender-based summit that is normally held every August. They are normally part of those discussions or the event itself. So this is an event that we host every year. In the last 2 years, we call it international, where we bring a lot of our partners. This year's focus will be on online victims. Last year it was on sextortion. The previous year it was on women in sport. So this year it will be on sextortion. Online victim support. This is consideration of a lot of videos that are being shared depicting women in a negative light. So we think we can focus on the victim support for that. And then regarding whether South Africa has got adequate laws around children protection, Indeed, we do have. The only thing is that in South Africa, they are a little bit scattered. If you think about, there are laws that are within social development, there are laws that are within what do you call the justice cluster, for instance, the Cyber Crimes Act, which also talks about the sharing of images without consent, which criminalizes that. I think we do have. The only thing is for us to work together closer. The only challenge that we have is that enforcement capacity, which the FPB, I think, gives the country. So in certain instances, when we work with them, we say, if there are cases that have got reference or they are attached to our mandate, refer them to us. And because the Act gives us the powers to refer matters to the law enforcement agency, we can do that. Our budget, Honorable Ngwenya, is about, for this current financial year, is 126 million, of which 103 come from say grant given to us by the department through the National Treasury, like the normal appropriation. That's what we do. Then for children protection, there's 3.1 million for this financial year. However, that money is not only it covers the hotline, it covers the analysis, it covers the online content moderation. So because they are combined as one program, but that's inadequate because even from a capacity point of view, we don't have enough children protection officers. There are only 3, and the law requires that because of the nature of the material that they get exposed to, they must at time be given time to go and recover socially. So we wish during that time when they are recovering, there are people that take over that task so that they can go and take a break. But unfortunately, because the limited challenge around funding that we have, that's where the challenge around capacity comes in. And on the engagement with the partnerships, like we have mentioned, we partner or we collaborate nationally and internationally. Locally, like we have mentioned, the Digital Regulators Forum, which include ICASA, the BCCSA, which Honorable Mkiva talked about, is within ICASA because we don't deal with the broadcasting space. We deal only with online. So this is more to say, if there are issues from there, let all of us be made aware of, and we deal with them in that way. We had a discussion with the BCCSA around further collaboration. They are still ongoing with the purpose to establish a memorandum of understanding because it's a kind of legislated regulatory intervention by South Africa, so that we can have that engagement that happens, especially more so that if you look at the way that broadcasting is happening now, you got a lot of social media also being incorporated into normal traditional media, whether it's through social media platforms and so forth. So I think that collaboration is very important. How often do we do public awareness? About 65% of our work relates to public awareness. This is our first line of regulation, because people need to be made aware. So, like I've mentioned, as we speak now, the whole of this week up until Friday, we are in Bapalaborwa, in which we are with the IC. Once the IC program ends, we are engaging the TVET colleges, in which we hope to get in touch with the youth. Last year, the focus was on the Free State. I think we did the Free State. This year we did Western Cape. Last year we did the Free State and Northern Cape. The other year we did Northwest and Limpopo. So we try, based on the budget allowance then that we go to each and every province. And when we go there, we camp. In other words, don't just go for one day. We either take a week or more, just engaging with a very dedicated team that ensures that they engage the youth, and also the online safety youth council that we have, which engages the youth at adversity. And then the last one that I thought I can touch base or advocate, if you can maybe refer to cases that have been successfully prosecuted for non-compliance with the Act, just at high level, or the ones that we dealt with in the last couple of years. But even on the raids, there are a lot of people that we arrest. Just that the justice system sometimes so slow. I mean, I remember the 5 cases that we did out of the raids in February and Cape Town. There are about 5 of them that I still remember, but there haven't been They've been enrolled, but there's no finality on the matters. But advocate, if you can touch base on those. I think the other issues the chairperson touched on, Chair, and I want to dwell on them. Advocate Lindhorst.
Maybe CEO, if I can just ask you through you, Chair, the point about the membership in international bodies to make sure that there is harmonization in
Okay.
Yeah. Can you just cover that? Otherwise, everything else I think was covered. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Chair. On the continent, we've got what we established what you call the harmonization group. This is a group that comprised largely of the English-speaking Africans, where we try to harmonize regulatory instruments, including classification and online safety. The unfortunate part, though, is you don't have, and I think that's the challenge that they've expressed with our similar entities, whether in Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, that in their own jurisdictions, they don't have legislative powers around online safety. The only area where our collaboration have gained strength is around classification. Then internationally, we are part of the online safety and so by this time, and there's a focus on online Fiji, Ireland, UK, France, and but this is because this work is transnational. I am a member of the which is a association of so that is part of that. So it is a matter that requires so that and finally, we received French initiative to kind of strengthen our support in online victim support and the program, so that I think, as you know, we don't have and years to come. But being prosecuted.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members.
Yeah.
Yes.
On the issue, I want to add around the question from the chairperson on international organization and the meaning of harm, whether are we participating in terms of ensuring that our definitions are aligned. CEO indicated that we are members of the Global Online Safety Regulators Network. So as part of the network, which consists of various online safety regulators across the globe, we are undertaking a process of regulatory mapping. So we have developed a regulatory index. In terms of the index, we are outlining the various role that each regulator has in their area of jurisdiction, the act, the powers given by the act, the online schemes that we are protecting, and also the definition. So the main purpose for that, Chair, is to ensure that we are aligned in instances maybe where our legislation is not providing enough definition for what constitutes harm. So that helps us, because the role of us sitting in that network is to network and ensure that we are also benchmarking and improve our regulatory effort. So that is aligned, and we are benefiting from the Global Online Safety Regulators Network. Then around the issue of prosecution, we have about 15 cases that the Child Protection Unit has been analyzing. in assisting the police. So 2 of those have been successfully prosecuted, and the charge is around distribution and creation of child pornography. And one of those Dr. Boluka referred to is one case that was one of Ackerman, who was convicted last year. So when it comes to the distribution of content without being registered with the board, so mostly we've arrested about 40 suspects who were distributing these DVDs without being licensed by the Film and Publication Board. So those, it didn't go through the prosecution process, but they were charged and they paid a fine. But as a regulator, our core work is to regulate and ensure that we enforce administratively. So about 401 compliance notice that we have issued. But to ensure that we also follow a fair system of administrative justice, those who are contravening the act, they are given an opportunity to also correct non-compliance. So that will be mostly your distributors who are distributing without having a license, or some of them, they would have been registered before, but they failed to renew. So which means they will be in contravention of the act. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Advocate. I trust that we covered and responded to all of the questions. Then we'll hand it back if there's any additional questions or perhaps there's something we missed.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair and CEO DG. Members, do we have any, maybe your question was not answered? Do you still have any follow-up? If so, you are allowed to speak. So you are satisfied, members? Because I don't see any hand. By the way, Chair, I just want to check with you. I know maybe you presented it. You said you are not in all, you don't have offices in all provinces. So can you tell us which provinces you have the offices, so that when we are there at our constituency, we can, if there is a problem, we can send people to your offices in our area as the members are NCOP, because we are representing the province, the interest of the provinces at the national level. The offices, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. We have offices obviously in Gauteng, and then in the Western Province, in Western Cape, as well as in KZN. CEO, I hope I am correct. I have not missed a province. I think your network is letting you down, or is it me? I cannot hear anything. But colleagues, Advocate, I hope I haven't
Yes,
missed
Chair, you
any.
are correct. Yes,
Thank
you
you.
are correct.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much, ma'am. We are now aware where are your offices. So, and then how long are you intending to spread to all provinces? Because your work is very important to our communities, especially in our vulnerable people. So how long are you gonna take to be in all provinces, so that all provinces be represented? I mean, be having your offices, so that we must not struggle. If I'm coming from very far Tshidila Molong, I must know that the offices are in the province. I can go there near them. Thanks.
Chair, I think if we were just to be honest, that with the reality of the budget cuts, it I do not see it feasible for us to be able to extend the physical presence of permanent offices in other provinces in the near future. However, the physical presence of offices has not stopped us from being effective across the provinces. And we make up for the physical absence by making sure that we do have partnerships with the critical stakeholders in those provinces in order to fulfill our mandate. Take, for instance, our partnership with SAPS. The partnership with SAPS is nationwide, and the training that we do with the law enforcement officials is across the provinces. It is not limited to those provinces where we have physical offices, and we conduct raids in different provinces, not only those that, we have a physical office in partnership with law enforcement agents. And the same goes whether it is with the NGOs that we work with that offer psychosocial support to any online harms victims. Those partnerships are nationwide, as well as our educational mandate. When we go out and educate the public, we go far and wide. We do not only go to those provinces where we have a physical offices. So I would like to assure the committee that the provinces, as much as they are not represented in terms of physical offices, but the work that we do touches across provinces. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much, ma'am, for the answer. Honorable members, so you are satisfied now. I can now release the entity and the department. Okay, I don't see any hand and I don't hear anyone saying anything. DG, can you say something, or chairperson, before I can release you?
I think from our side is just to express our gratitude for the opportunity to present the work that we do, and also to appreciate the questions that were posed on us. We, yes, we did respond to them, but I think they have also challenged us in certain ways. There are certain things that we are going to go back and make sure that we reinforce and to make sure that all, for instance, provinces are catered for. So we really appreciate the opportunity from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Is it the chair or DG? DG, do you want to say?
That was the chair, so I'm not sure if the DG has any final words.
DG? Okay. Chair of the board and CEO and your team, let me take this opportunity to thank you. Your presentation to us is very, 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 very important. So we really appreciated your presence and to give us the detail, because it was a detail. That's why maybe you see members are not saying anything, is because your presentation, it was detailed. So thank you very much. Till we call you again for another discussion. But if you don't call you, we'll just still work with you in other lines. So thank you very much. Now you are released so that we can continue with the business of the committee. Thank you very much. You are released.
Thank you very much, chairpersons and honorable members. Thank you.
Thank you. While they are leaving the meeting, can we check, because I remember we do have 2 set or 3 set of the minutes of our previous meeting. Are we correcting so that we can continue with our business of the committee? Are we correcting?
Yes, Chair, there are 7 members.
Okay. Can you start with the minutes of the previous meeting? Because I remember we have 2 sets or 3 sets, if I'm not mistaken. Okay.
You are correct, Chair.
Okay, honorable members, I present the minutes for Wednesday, the 21 February to you. I just want to check, I think members have received the minutes because we were supposed to process them last meeting, but unfortunately, we didn't correct. So I just want to check with you, did you receive them and read them? And if there were corrections, did you make a correction? Here are the minutes for the 21 February, honorable members.
Thank you,
Yes,
Chair.
Chair, we did receive the minutes and we read all of them. Thank you.
Thanks,
And
Chair.
then
Ms.
are
Ngwenya, I
you,
would like you to adopt the minutes as it is. Thank you.
Mangwenya, you are adopting, Mam Bibi, did you, you were moving
Yes, I was
for
moving.
adoption?
Yes, and also
Okay. And then,
and also confirming that we did receive the minutes on time.
oh, okay.
Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you very much. It means the minutes for the 21 February is duly adopted. Now let's move to another set of the minutes. The minutes of the 28th February, honorable members. Did you receive the minutes on time? And you process them, I mean, you read them accordingly and check the errors, check the spelling, check misinformation to those minutes, honorable member.
Chairperson, I move for the adoption of the minutes. Thank you.
The 28th February minutes, Honorable Bibi move. And then Honorable Tebogo Mudi says second, Mam Bibi. The minutes of the 28th February is duly adopted. Can you get another set of the minutes, Secretary?
There were only 2 sets, Chair.
Okay, no. Thank you very much, honorable members. Let me take this opportunity on behalf of the chairperson of the committee to thank you for participating in this meeting, which was very important. I think all the presentation that was presented here, we are going to utilize it in our constituency, more especially our community members. They are not aware about these boards and what they are doing. So we are now going, everybody is going back to his community or her community to spread this gospel of this entity so that we can utilize them. You know, in our country, the gender violence is very, very, very high. So if we are dealing with this entity, we will be able to combat crime or to assist our vulnerable group in our country. By so saying, honorable members, thank you very much for your participation. This meeting is is now adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you.
Chairperson, thank you. Mama.
Oh. Thank you, Chair.